And I was thinking, I want to stay in this light forever. I just bask in this wonder. And slowly it kind of dissipated, went away. And I'm in my bedroom in this state of awe. I was just in the state of amazing awe, and it was still lit up. And I turned to my side, and I see white robes standing next to my bed. And then I looked up. Holy moly, that's Jesus. And he was looking at me with intense blue eyes that I've never seen anybody with with those blue eyes. And he said to me one sentence, and that was, but he didn't move his lips. I heard his voice, male's voice, in my head, or wherever I just heard it. Don't waste your life thinking you're not loved. And when he said the word your life, I felt this. It was palpable how precious my life was. And not just how precious my life was, but how precious everybody's life was. So it completely flipped my world inside out and upside down. I had to reconsider every thought I had thought, every belief I held, every concept had to be re-examined in light of that experience. And I was an English teacher, so I took that sentence, that one precious sentence he gave me, and I took it apart, I pulled it apart. Okay, so there's a life to be wasted, so that meant we, everyone, has a purpose of some kind, has a mission, is a precious reason for being here, whatever that is. It's precious. So, okay, what is my purpose? I don't want to waste my life. I got the supreme command here. What is my purpose? I got to figure that out. So that became a challenge, tried to figure that out. And then don't waste your life meant I was creating this situation, that I was not a victim of my circumstances, that I had a choice. I had choices all the time. Every thought was a choice. Because most of this was up here. It wasn't what I was doing, it was what I was thinking. And that got me depressed. So being depressed became for me a way to waste life. So I had to figure out how to make myself feel better and find my purpose and wonder how is this going to affect my actions in the future, because I want to go to heaven. I want to go back home.
I was swept away by being at art college with all the different people, all the environment was different. And of course, I was going to be a famous artist and I was going to marry Cat Stevens. I was 17. And my life with Jesus at that time was just the knowledge of God in some respect, but absolutely no church, nothing. So how I want to start this is by saying that I've sort of given you the basics of it, the outline of it. But let's go into the nitty-gritty now. So it was a Sunday. I was at home and I managed to score some hash. This was this grass or something, I don't know. Anyway, I'd bought it in a pub, and I'd been experimenting a little bit with other friends at art college, smoking a little bit at parties. And this was one of the first times that I've actually scored myself. About 20 minutes after. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Maybe I need to have some more. So I put the rest of it in a sandwich and ate that as well. And then I thought, well, still nothing's happening. So I sort of went into my bedroom, turned the music on, drew the curtains, and that was basically it, really. I was completely gone. My heart was beating so fast. I was convulsing in the bed. I was shaking. I thought I'd try and make myself sick. I couldn't move. Literally, I could not move. My body was in such a state of shock. I couldn't move off the bed. I think I fell off the bed. I can't really remember fully. But I just thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? 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 And, it was just getting worse and worse. I had no sense of my body. The floor was caving in. The walls were caving in. And this tremendous sense of guilt, this tremendous sense of anxiety and threat. And all I kept thinking was, Mum and Dad downstairs, what are they going to do when they find me dead in my bed? And I just thought, this is the worst. I love my parents and they're going to just find me dead in my bed because I'm going to have a heart attack. My heart was pounding out of my body. It was just pounding so fast. And I don't know how long this went on for. It seemed like an eternity. I really don't know how long it went on for. But what I then did, what happened then, was this was the marvellous, wonderful love of Jesus, because I had no sense of what to do. I'd done everything I thought I could possibly do to save myself. And then I prayed, Jesus, save me. I am sorry. I am so stupid. I am so foolish. What have I done? What have I done? And I just felt like I was just about to die. And then I had the presence of Jesus fall on me. It was amazing. It was like light. It was just like love, complete love. But also it was the figure of Jesus. Somehow my mind had seen or conjured up the presence and the actual figure of Jesus. And he said, he just emanated love to me. He didn't physically speak, but he said, you're so silly. You are so foolish. You are such a child. And he said, he understood. He understood everything. And my stupidity and my stupidness. But over all that, his love and his presence was overwhelming. And I just felt that he just calmed me and he saved me and he quietened my soul. And I don't know how many hours it was, how many hours I spent in that state of being healed, but the visualization of everything else stopped. He brought the calm to the storm in my mind, in my consciousness.
And the next morning is when it kind of hit me. My oldest boy, who was about 5, was so angry, just so angry. And then my 2-year-old wouldn't let me touch him. So I just had the experience. I can't keep putting my children through this. I don't understand what's happening to me. I have no control over it. And mind you, I had gotten help. I had seen counselors and nobody had any answers for me. And that was it. It was that my children were better my children were better off without me. So that's what I did. And I waited till the next night when everyone was asleep. And the first thing I did is I slit my wrists with a broken apart safety razor, which was really ineffective. I didn't know how anybody did that, but I did leave pretty deep scars on my wrist. But then I started taking everything in the medicine cabinet. And I knew, like, this is it. Well, I'd had a stepmother who had had a near-death experience, and she'd gone to the corner of the room. So that's what I expected. So I wanted to watch, because that's the state of mind I was in. I was not well, I wasn't healthy, and I was dark. It was a dark time for my life. And I wanted to watch and see this happen. So I opened my eyes. And as soon as I did, I could feel my body just like back into my body. I could feel my spirit and my body reconnect. So I closed my eyes again. And then I could feel this energy. I could feel it separating. I knew I was out of my body, opened my eyes to watch, back in my body. So I did that a couple of times. And then finally it was just like, okay, opening my eyes, that is disrupting this process and closing my eyes. So I pressed my eyes closed. And suddenly I was swallowed up in the experience. And then I'm pushed through this tunnel. And it wasn't until later I realized that was my birth, because then the next thing I see is my mother cradling me. And I looked so much like her, I was confused and thought that I was looking at myself at first. But then I realized I'm feeling everything. I can experience everybody's points of view. So then I went through my life beginning to end. Every moment of my life, parts of it were just rushed through, not important, but parts of it were slowed down so that I could experience. And the point of it was experience how everybody else around me experienced. So out of that, it's like exoneration and patience and love and forgiveness for my father, for my mother. And then also getting how my actions impacted others. That was the big one. I was pretty excited. Wow, I'm dead. I knew I was dead. And it came all the way to the point where I was lying on the couch. And then suddenly I was surrounded by darkness. But it wasn't like if you switch off the light in a room where you can see nothing in front of you. It's like outer space kind of darkness where you can see what's out there, but it's dark. There's nothing but blackness, right? And I expected to see dead loved ones. So I'm looking around for them. And I hear a voice next to me. And I recognize the voice. I know that I know this. This, I want to say person, but I know who this, is. I know it's male. And he just says, this is it. This is the life you lived. Like no drama, no significance, just plain and simple. This is it. This is your life. This is the life you lived. And suddenly there was a pinpoint of light in the distance. And I hear a voice at the same time as I'm watching this light travel this distance to me at the speed of light. And the voice says, is this what you really want? Well, I had never even considered that this was what I want. It was what I had to do in my view. And so this light comes to the edge of this barrier, whatever this is. And it's a man, like in the shape of a man. And he's made of light. And his hair is flowing. And his robes are flowing. But he's just beautiful and made of light. And I say, but my life is so hard. And all of this is just like this energy exchange, thought exchange. And it's just bam, 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 bam. And he says, well, you can't skip over parts. It's supposed to be hard. You've done a lot of nonsense in your life. Was kind of the message that I got, that I'd been, even though my life had been really, hell. And I really felt like I couldn't have changed anything. Like the message that I got is that I've always been in charge, and that this was all part of it. The experiences that I was having was part of this grand experience, and that was for my good. And then, and I was still just, kind of dumbfounded, number one, that processing that I'm having this conversation with who I knew to be God. And then, but obviously it wasn't going anywhere because I was pretty determined that I couldn't be or do anything different than what I had already been doing and having. So then I hear this other voice, and it is the same voice that was with me at the beginning of my near-death experience that said, this is your life. And I hear him, but I cannot see him. And he is next to this being of light that I'm talking to, but there's some kind of a barrier and I can't see him. But I hear his voice, and he says, don't you understand I did this for you? And when he says that, I see these pinpricks of light start to appear, and then suddenly all these things happened at the same time. I am suddenly behind these two beings of light. And they are having this energetic conversation back and forth like lightning, exchanging information. And the one who I knew to be Christ was like transferring my life experience to this other being who I knew to be God or my Heavenly Father, transferring this information. And he says, she doesn't understand. And at the same time, I'm still out in that darkness, in that beltway, watching this happen. And I can see myself standing there. And then I had a third perspective, and that was within the body of Christ 2,000 years ago when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, like experiencing my life as if it was his own. And then I came to understand that that is what happened in the Garden of Gethsemane. It wasn't just this, sterile kind of, blood from every pore experience. It was like he experienced my life from the beginning to the end as if it was his own. Like he got my point of view, but he did that for everybody.
The initial experience was a sense of coming to out of darkness and realizing I have left my body, I've died. Now mind you, I didn't know I'd overdosed, you see. My body's sort of this opaque thing. I'm sort of floating through space. I'm coming into this presence of this white light. It was like life. That's the only way I could interpret it. I wasn't afraid. I felt absolutely safe. My body was, when I looked at it, it was almost kind of see-through, but I felt okay. I thought, I've died, but I feel wonderful. This feels great. This is an incredible experience. And then I found myself focusing on this light that I was coming into the center of, that I was merging with, if you will. And the only thing I can say, because I was not a born-again Christian, but I thought, I think this is Jesus. I couldn't see anybody, but there was a personality in the presence of this light. It was white light, indescribable in its purity. And the other feelings that went with it were, I'm loved. I'm in the presence of love. There's no sense of time at all, and in the presence of knowledge. And I felt so good, so loved. And again, I just knew that this was Jesus. And he said, Jonathan, I want you to look at your life. And then every moment, every thought, every action, everything that I saw, beheld, did, I was living it. From the beginning all the way through until that present time. That's the only way I can describe it. I was living my life. No judgment on it, just this is your life. It's over. And I'm in his presence again, aware of that. And he said, Jonathan, what did you see? And I said, I just see negative, destructive choices my whole way. There's nothing good. All my thoughts, the suspicions, everything was negative. That's my life. And he said, all right. Then it faded away.
I suddenly realized that that body is dead. And I'm too young to die. I'm only 20 years of age. And then all of a sudden I thought the light at the head end of the room was getting brighter, but it was growing in an intensity of light to where if you turned on 1,000,000 welders' lights, you'd have some idea of the intensity. Three things happened at the exact same moment. Something deep inside of my spiritual being, not the corpse lying over in the bed, said, stand up, you're in the presence of the Son of God. At that exact same instant, out of this brilliant light stepped the most amazing being I have ever met. And those hospital walls virtually disappeared. I saw every single minute detail of my life, everything I had ever done in public and private, from saying my own cesarean section birth to my 20th year when I was pronounced dead. And he threw a question, what had I done with my life? And I thought, well, I'm an Eagle Scout. Immediately he shot back, that glorified you. And the same question again, what have you done with your life? Now, over there in that realm, there is no such thing as hypocrisy, because one of the first things that you become aware of is that the other being is totally aware of what you think, so you can't think one thing and say another. There's no such thing as misunderstanding what he meant. And yet, here was a being that knew everything about me, and he totally accepted me, and he totally loved me. Now, that blew my mind.
When I got to the light, the love was so incredible, the acceptance, the forgiveness, There was pure knowledge. I knew everything, and I knew everything was going to be okay. And when I first got there, I was greeted by someone to my side, and it was a man, and he was dressed in a robe. And he showed me over to my side, there was a long table. And at this table were thousands and thousands of people on either side of the table talking and chatting and conversing and having a good time and laughing. And everyone was having a party-like atmosphere. And I remember when I looked at the table, instantly one person turned and looked straight at me and caught me in the eye, and it was my grandmother. And she said to me, she goes, "You can't stay here, it's not your time yet." And I instantly said, I'm not leaving, I'm staying. I love it here. I'm accepted here for what I am. I'm forgiven for everything I had ever done. And I did not want to leave for any reason. And when I say I asked, you don't talk like you're speaking, like I'm talking to you right now. You speak in a way of what I believe that we call telepathy. You know what the other person is saying, and you converse that way. The next thing that happened to me was I asked to see the Christ, whom I address as the Christ. Maybe your higher spirit, your guardian angel, whatever, but to me it was the Son of God. And instantly, this love that I felt intensified millions of times over. And there was another man standing next to me, and I knew immediately it was Christ. And I was looking down at his feet, and I kept coming up higher and higher, and I was coming up to his face. And when I got to his face, I couldn't see any facial features. It was all brilliant light. And it didn't burn your eyes. It's not like staring at the sun where you can't look for very long and then you have to look away. This was a brilliant light that you could look at and you wanted to stay there. You were drawn to it. And I remember the love, the forgiveness, the truth. Truth was known, knowledge was known. Everything was going to be okay. That was the message at all times to me. The Christ, when he arrived, immediately started what near-death experiencers call as a life review. And for me, how mine worked was, it was like a screen, and on the screen were pictures of people's faces. And these people were the people that I had had interaction with throughout my entire lifetime. And whatever I had caused that person to feel as a result of my interaction with them, that's what I felt for a brief second, very intense. Whether it was we had a good interaction or we had a bad interaction, I felt that intensity, and then it kept rolling, just fast as could be, just lightning fast of people's faces. But yet I comprehended everything that was going on. Time has no meaning. The time that I was there by earthly terms was 4 hours, but it seemed like I was there only a few seconds. But time has no meaning there. The next thing, the Christ asked me, he said, "What did you learn from seeing all of these faces?" And I said to him that love was the best choice. And he said, "You're right." And I saw I had to be careful how I treated people. And I never will forget that part of my near-death experience. The next thing the Christ showed me was a pool of water. I'm sorry, more of a pond. And it was outside, and there were trees around it, and a single drop of water, like a raindrop, fell. And I could see the ripple effect of when the drop of water fell into the pond. And he said, "Don't you see, your actions are just like the ripple effect in that pond. Everything you do not only affects those people, but it affects those that ripple on and further out and further out and further out. Touches people's lives that I had no idea, but it does. It has the ripple effect." The Christ then told me that I would have to go back, and I of course I didn't want to. I wanted to stay, horribly I wanted to stay. And he said, "I want you to remember these 3 things." And what I was told was, number 1, to have more love, which I've contemplated years now, since my near-death experience, exactly what facets that could mean. The second one was not to be afraid of what I had left behind. And I'm not real proud of a lot of the choices I've made in my life. I've made some bad choices. I've made some good ones, but I understood what he meant when he said that. And then the last thing was to enjoy life. And life is short. And then we come into a different place.
When I stepped into heaven, I mean, I hit the light, and I was literally blinded by the light. I'm blinded still today of the light of his presence. I stood up, I turned around, and there was Jesus. And I don't know if I ran to him or he came to me. I mean, all of a sudden we were there. He just smiled at me, and I felt all this emotion that he had for me. I finally felt like I was home. It was like I stepped into, finally I belonged. This is where I belonged. I was home. In my heart of hearts, I did not believe that I was worthy of his love, because I always felt like I was never going to measure up to what I thought the Lord wanted from me. So when I felt his emotion, I felt how he felt about me, and the things that I thought about myself, like my flaws or my issues, he never even noticed. He just wants me. It wasn't anything that I did for him. It wasn't my performance, nothing. It was just me. I wasn't just loved by him, but he was in love with me. And I was his. That was it. I was done for. He said, "You can stay if you want to." And I said, "Well, if I can stay, I'm staying with you. I'm gonna stay with you." And he said, "But your purpose isn't done." And he said, "I want you to tell the people who I am, who I really am." Because I thought he was, religious. I thought he was mean. I thought he was, I didn't think he was, human. And he's human. He'll always be human, but he's God. I didn't want to leave him. I hated leaving, but I had to come back.
I was transported into the tunnel of colors again, and I appeared on this hill. And on this hill, I saw the most beautiful scenery with so many awesome, vibrant colors. There was gold, and this gold was just like unimaginable. Not like kind of gold we see here on earth, but there were gold wheat fields to my left as far as the eye could see, and there were gold cornfields to my right as far as the eye could see. And in the middle of the wheat and the cornfields, there was a valley with a stream running down the middle of it. And as I looked further, I saw people and children and this woman with a basket on her head collecting corn and wheat. And it was just such a beautiful sight. And I was looking around, and all of a sudden Jesus comes walking up to my right side. And I knew it was Jesus because it just the vibe, just the aura that he had around him was just so breathtaking and so peaceful. And I remember looking at his white robe and his sandals, but I was too scared to look at his face or his eyes. And he all of a sudden went like this, as to say, this is just a little glimpse of heaven. This is just a little bitty tiny piece of heaven that I'm showing you. And I'm just so honored that he did show me what I saw. And I don't think I'll ever forget, because it was just such a beautiful, beautiful sight. All of the colors, all of the aura, everyone was singing also. The workers down there that were collecting the wheat and the corn, they were so happy to be there, and they were singing beautiful, beautiful music. That was just so peaceful. And I just wanted to let you guys in on what I have seen. At the time of what happened, I was a pagan. I was very much a sinner. I did not know of Jesus. I knew I had heard about him every now and then, but I did not know Jesus, which makes me very thankful that he did show me what I have seen.
I wasn't afraid. It was like, I'm going home. When I first entered in, it was just bright. It wasn't so much what I saw as much as what I experienced. The first thing I perceived was, everything is right. There's nothing wrong here. And I said, it's past peace. You know, there's a scripture in the Bible in Philippians, the 4th chapter, that says, peace past understanding. That's what's going on there. It's landscape, but more, because everything's alive. Nothing's dead. I don't mean just live like grass. I mean, it's intelligent, it can move, you know, it thinks. And someone says, well, that's way out there. It was way out there for me. You know, I'll tell you the truth. The first thing that comes to me is he's bright, just like John says, he's brighter than the noonday sun. And the next phrase I say, I wish people could grab it. And it's this one, and we can look at him. And what you're looking at is not so much the physical part of it. You're really experiencing the love he has for you. And I tell people it's like he only loves you and no one else. I saw him communicating to angels. He would just look at them. Communication there was thought to thought. They would acknowledge his receiving his information, bow before him like this, and then back out. And it was like, wow. And I don't tell you the truth, I was happy. I was planning on staying, you know, and people always say, yeah, you know, didn't you love your wife and your children? Yes, I loved them probably more than I ever could. But I was thinking, you come here where everything is right.
The place that I was in had no ceiling. It was just blue sky up above. There were about 150 to 200 people there. And they were beautiful. They were so thrilled to see me. Nobody has ever been that thrilled to see me. They were all applauding. Many of them were crying. Every one of them had to hug me. Some 2 or 3 times had to hug me. I hugged every one of them. They were communicating an affection, a level of affection that is, I've never had that before, ever. Way back in the distance, way up behind me, on the top of a mountain, so big that it had this winding road all the way up it, and there were so many people on that road going up and coming down that the hill looked like it was alive, like it was like a beehive, you know, just constantly moving. And the top of the hill, very clearly delineated, was a Syrian mountain man. And he looked an awful lot like Jesus. He looked to be about 15 feet tall, long hair, beard, mustache, and just the most piercing and kind eyes. He asks you a question. What did you do for your fellow man? It's a life review. You're going year by year through your whole life. Anytime you're stuck and you don't recall, one of the walls comes alive as the movie of your life, and it shows you doing something for your fellow man. For me, it was when I was 10, 11 years old. I didn't know if I did anything for somebody then. And the wall came alive, and there I was as a crossing guard at my grammar school. And I just took that responsibility so seriously, especially with the little kids, the kindergartners and the first graders and so on. And according to wherever I was, I call it paradise, but that was what I did for my fellow man when I was 10.
So, I started seeing a white light while he's telling me, Seth, stay with me, Seth, stay with me. And the first thing I noticed is I got scared knowing that I was dying. And I saw that light, and everything just went away, and I felt better. And I felt calm and relaxed, and I felt like I didn't see him physically, but there was a white veil. That's what I can say. I didn't see a tunnel. I didn't see any of that stuff. I saw a pure white light that was so bright, but I could look right into it. It was like a shop light, but 100 times brighter, but it didn't hurt your eyes. And I'm looking straight into it, and I'm like wondering what's on the other side of that, kind of like, what's on the other side of that? There's got to be something on the other side, but it was veiled is the best way I could describe it. That white light was the veil that kept me from entering heaven or whatever that other side was. I didn't know, but it was a white veil, and I could feel presences. This is another thing that's hard to explain is I didn't hear voices. I didn't hear something telling me, Seth, I didn't hear that. No, it was a download of like instant information. It was like, boom, and I just knew all these things, like, boom, everyone you know and love is right here. Boom, here's your buddy, here's your dog who just passed away 10 days before you had your heart attack, which I think that stress kind of helped lead to my heart attack from me losing my best friend. But he was one of the first souls that I felt the presence of, was my dog Blue. And I just knew there was this other presence I couldn't pinpoint as a friend or family. But I swear I felt like he was my absolute best friend that I had ever met. He was my absolute best friend. And I never got his name really. I was just like, oh, hey, what's up, buddy? You're my absolute best friend, you know? Who are you, you know? I know who you are. You know who I am. But I didn't say his name, and he didn't say my name, but it was Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ himself, who was my friend. And so I started... Once I felt that feeling of peace and I wanted to stay there, I didn't want to come back to whatever I was doing here. And I remember kind of arguing. This is another portion of my testimony, is a lot of my memory was kind of blanked. I don't remember every detail. One thing I do remember is kind of arguing at the end. Like, well, oh, come on, you know, like I've written Christian music and I've done this and that. And I was kind of stating my case, you know, come on, don't send me back there, come on. And this is when I heard the first actual audible words of my experience. And I was coming back to earth as I heard it. But I started coming back into my body as I was arguing, please let me stay, please let me stay. And then I heard, no, not yet. I heard the words, no, not yet. And that just tripped me out. And like, even though it's so simple and such an easy thing to understand, that those 3 words have been like so profound in my life, and they've changed my life.
I was immediately propelled into a white space. No ceiling, no floor, just a giant white space. And there was a tree, a very large, deciduous tree. It looked very healthy, full of leaves, green leaves. And a man walking toward me that looked very much like Jesus. I thought to myself, well, if Jesus is here, I must be dead. And it makes sense. I was on such high doses of opioids. Of course, I've had an overdose. So I was pretty resigned that here I was standing in front of Jesus. Although I can honestly say I never expected to be standing in front of Jesus. He reached out his hand and he grabbed my hand and said to me, "You've suffered enough. Come with me, your life is over." And I immediately pulled my hand back from his, and I thought the most ironic thing that I've ever thought in my entire life. But who will take care of my husband if I leave? By then my husband was caring for me and taking care of the house and working a full-time job, and I was, for all intents and purposes, bedridden. So that was the most ironic thing I could have said. I also had a sense that it was my choice, if I stayed in my life or if I went with him.
And then all of a sudden I'm feeling this love and this wave of emotions coming from within the door, and it gave me, I can't even say chills, goosebumps, but also I felt this image of love. There was so much love that I was receiving. And it was like every cell was leaping for joy, like it knew what this love was all about. And it was almost so overwhelming, I started crying. And Richard's dad, he goes by the name Junior, he kind of picked me up and he said, "Now, I want you to look inside again." And I looked inside and I could see the Lord sitting in like a chair, and he was taking children up onto his lap. And they were children of all ages, and as I watched this happening, I understood that there were babies, children of all ages, and that babies who have been aborted or have been lost in miscarriage, they don't die. They go to heaven too. And I didn't know that. And as Jesus was taking a child up onto his lap, they were playing with his beard and playing with his long hair, and he was listening to them, that child, and talking to that child. But at the same time, he was listening to everybody else at the same time and talking to everybody else at the same time. And I couldn't understand it, so I looked at Richard's dad, Junior, and I said, "Because Jesus can do this." And then I looked around a little more at heaven, and he said, you're only going to be here a little while longer, because the Lord said it's not your time. He's going to send you back. But I saw this waterfall and these flowers, and this water that was falling was like singing praises to our Heavenly Father and to Jesus. And you could understand, even though it wasn't like in an English kind of language, you could understand exactly what this water was saying. And then, just to give you an example of the life there, I looked at this rose, and it was like it was calling to me, beckoning, but at the same time, loving the Lord. And every petal, every little part of this rose glorified the Lord. and had like cells of music and sound and colors, these colors that you will never see till you go to heaven, because there are no earthly words to describe how beautiful it was.
Předtím nic o smrti nevěděl, nikdy jsem nic o smrti neslyšel, ani o křesťanství, ani o duchovních věcech. Jsme se prostě doma, ani v okolí, ani ve škole v tom 88. roce, o ničem takovém jsme se nebavili. A najednou ten okamžik smrti, to byla velmi zvláštní věc. Já jsem myslel, že to bude něco jakoby, že bude cvák jako vypínač světla. Cvák je tma, cvák je světlo. A ono se něco takového stalo, ale byl to takový cvák, takový jeden jediný okamžik, kdy ten okamžik smrti já můžu popsat tak, že já jsem se najednou ohlédl za sebe a na dně v té řece jsem viděl ležet své tělo, tak jak je tady teďka před vámi, tak jak já tady jsem, ale přitom já, tak jak se cítím v tento okamžik, jako moje osoba, Jan Boštík, moje identita, byla tady, ale moje tělo leželo tam. A to byl ten okamžik smrti, kdy moje duše se oddělila od mého těla. Potom vlastně následovalo to, že já jsem přemýšlel, co se stalo. Nevěděl jsem, kde jsem, nevím, proč se to stalo. Jediné, co jsem vnímal, že to jsem pořád já, a akorát jsem nevěděl, kde jsem. A najednou, aniž bych já sám chtěl, tak moje tělo bylo tažené takovým úzkým tmavým prostorem. Na jehož konci jsem se dostal do místa, které bylo osvětleno takovou růžovo-žlutou barvou. A v tom místě jsem najednou cítil pocity euforie, blaha, štěstí, a druhý pocit, ten byl velmi zvláštní. Já jsem najednou cítil, že už jsem tam někdy byl, že jsem tam doma, že jsem se vrátil domů. To byl prioritnější pocit domova, jakoby víc než ten domov u rodičů. To bylo velmi silné. A krátce na to vlastně nás se stala jedna velmi, velmi zvláštní věc. Já jsem do toho okamžiku byl úplně nevěřícím člověkem, který nikdy neslyšel o Bibli, neslyšel o Ježíši Kristu. A já jsem najednou cítil, že někdo přišel a že stojí za mnou. A tak jsem se otočil a za mnou stála postava zalitá v zářícím světle. A teď se stala velmi, velmi zázračná věc, kdy ve vteřině, kdy já jsem se podíval na to světlo, tak jsem okamžitě věděl, že to světlo je Ježíš Kristus. I když jsem k tomu neměl žádné podklady, žádné informace, žádné zkušenosti, vůbec nic. Okamžitě jsem věděl, že to je Ježíš Kristus. Najednou vlastně se začalo odehrávat několik velmi intimních scén s tím Ježíšem Kristem, kdy on si mě vzal k sobě, objímal mě. Já jsem najednou cítil, že se netopím ve vodě, ale že se topím v pocitu jeho lásky, kterou mě jakoby zahrnul. To bylo velmi silné, velmi, velmi intimní. A já jsem najednou cítil, že on mě zná mě jménem, ale znal i celý můj život. A já ho neznal, já jsem vůbec nevěděl, kdo to je, ale bylo to velmi příjemné setkání. A on mě potom, než odešel, tak mi vlastně položil otázku, něco v tom smyslu, co chci říct o svém životě, jak ho chci obhájit. A to byla jednoduchá otázka, ale stala se velmi zvláštní věc. Já jsem na tuhle jednoduchou otázku neměl co odpovědět. Do svých 17 let to, co jsem prožil, znal, věděl, tak jsem nemohl nic použít. A já jsem se cítil velmi nepříjemně a pokořeně. Cítil jsem se jako, že nic nejsem, jako, že nic neznamenám. To bylo nepříjemné. Krátce potom vlastně následovalo to, že tenhle ten pocit jakoby odezněl a já jsem se znovu cítil, že tam jsem doma, že mi je příjemně, že to je pocit blaženosti, euforie. A ten prostor pokračoval někam přirozeně dál. A já jsem viděl, že ten prostor se rozděluje na cestu doleva a doprava a já jsem nepřemýšlel, si půjdu doleva nebo doprava. Prostě jsem chtěl někam jít dál. A najednou, než jsem došel k tomu rozcestí, tak těsně u rozcestí jsem slyšel znovu hlas toho Ježíše Krista a on řekl větu, kterou si pamatuju dodnes velmi dobře. Stůj, vrať se, ještě není tvůj čas. Já jsem nechtěl v tu chvíli jakoby poslechnout, protože jsem chtěl jít dál a najednou tu větu on zopakoval, stůj, vrať se, ještě není tvůj čas. A v ten okamžik mě vlastně vzal a já jsem se ocitl zpátky ve svém těle.
The gospel of Jesus, which of course was hushed up from its inception, was that wake up everybody and find out who you are. Supposing that what was true about Jesus as a Son of God is true of us. Only a few of us know it. Now, why talk about this? Is it interesting? Is it important for the human being to realize that in some sense of the word, whatever it means, he is God or one with God, as is plainly taught by the Hindus, hinted at by the Buddhists, only they don't like to put it out as a concept, in case people will use the concept as an idol to hang on to. They want you to find out for yourself and not believe in it. And certainly the Taoists understand it, the Sufis understand it, a lot of people understand it. But so what? Well, the importance of it is this, that to know that you are God is another way of saying that you feel completely with this universe. You feel profoundly rooted in it and connected with it. You feel, in other words, that the whole energy which expresses itself in the galaxies is intimate. It is not something to which you are a stranger, but it is that with which you, whatever that is, are intimately bound up. That in your seeing, your hearing, your talking, your thinking, your moving, you express that which it is which moves the sun and other stars.